But what a great weekend for Indiana sports, just in the state-wise. But Indiana did not get the win as they went to Ohio State. But I think we see what's coming. To me, I still think this is the second-best team in the Big Ten, and they've got big things ahead of them.
Well, they certainly proved that they can compete with the Ohio State, even though it was a bit of a struggle at times. But, I think Indiana has proven that they're at a different level than they have been for some time. And without question, despite the fact that they got down 35-7 in this football game to start the third quarter, and were able to still come back and make a game of it right down to the end, I think speaks loud and gives Tom Allen a lot of belief in the culture that he's established in Indiana. There's no doubt these kids fight. They believe that they can win every time they walk out on the field. They did not perform very well at the beginning of this contest, but they still battled and got themselves in a position to win the game. And that's basically what you're after. And when you take on a team like Ohio State, you know you're in for a ball game. It's going to be very difficult. You're going to have to overcome a lot of obstacles, and I think Indiana showed they're capable of doing that in this contest.
Absolutely, and to see it in the fashion they did it. A lot of talk in years past about Indiana not finishing in games and such of that nature, but to do this on the road against one of the top teams in the country, a team that is going to be fighting for a national championship, to not only not give up, but put themselves in a position where they could have won that game, just marvelous to watch. And it tells you what is coming with this program, because they don't lose anybody, by the way, but it is just going to be fascinating to watch this program continue to evolve to one that will be fighting for a position in the college football playoff soon.
Well, there's no question that Indiana has upgraded their talent, especially in the skill position areas and on defense. I think there's still a real question mark about this team's ability to run the football, which they did not do at all in this game against Ohio State. So I wouldn't put Indiana in that category just yet. I would say that they are on the road to that if they continue to upgrade what they do from a recruiting standpoint. But here's the problem about Indiana football, and this has been its problem since maybe the beginning of time, is the fact that they do not have the ability, or they've not had the ability to recruit the kind of players in the offensive and defensive lines that are difference makers. And that's not to put down the kids that they have, because they've got great young men. There's no question about that. But you've got to be able to run the football to take some heat off of your quarterback and receiving core. You've got to have more balance than what Indiana has shown so far this year. That's, if anything about this Ohio State game showed Indiana's weaknesses, it was that, and their inability to push forward with a run game that is credible. And I don't think it's the running backs. I really don't. I think the backs that Indiana has are every bit as capable as anybody in the conference, but they do not have that offensive line right now, or they haven't schemed for that offensive line to give them more ability to have success. And I'm not putting down coaches. I'm not putting down players. I'm simply stating what I see at this juncture. And honestly, it's got to get better on the defensive side as well, but they've got a lot of guys that battle their butts off on the defensive side of the trenches that continue to play good football and give themselves the ability to do some really positive things. It's not that way on the offensive line right now, but I will say this. The offensive line does do a decent job of protecting Michael Pennix, but a big part of the reason that they do or have that ability is because of Pennix himself, the ability that he has to get rid of the football quickly, to see things quickly, maybe better than any quarterback I've ever seen at Indiana. His ability to see the field and find a receiver, that kind of thing, that's just an uncanny knack, and not too many people have that. But it's Michael Pennix's show right now, is no doubt, and the receiving corps. And then the receiving corps still had 4 or 5 drops on Saturday, which that still bothers me a little bit, because it's pretty much the same people that are dropping the football when those throws come to them. So that's got to get better too. But let's face it, the run game right now is where Indiana is really struggling, and if it doesn't get better, it's just going to continue to be a problem.
Yeah, Don, you mentioned the pass protection. They only gave up 2 sacks, but not able to open up the holes to get any running creases, and just not enough to have that balance, which they've done a better job that against other teams. We'll see how that goes forward, but you're right, that has to improve. How about the tandem of Michael Pennix and Ty Freifogel right now? There's not a hotter duo. They're 2 of the hottest teams in the history of this Big Ten right now. Ty Freifogel setting a record with becoming the only receiver to get 200 yards in back-to-back games.
Well, Freifogel's, the job that Ty Freifogel has done this year, I think, pretty much indicates how you become a great receiver. It's all work ethic. It's all a guy who believes that he has got to work harder than anybody else to be as successful as he would like to be. And I believe Ty Freifogel has done that. And you talk to him before a season starts, and you hear about the hard work that he put in the off season, even though it was COVID related this summer and so on, that they didn't have a chance to work. He was working on his own, and he was back home doing what he had to do to get ready for the season. And he is just having a breakout year, to say the least. He was always a good, what you considered a possession type receiver, but we're seeing him break tackles. We're seeing him streak down the sideline, and people can't catch him. It's just an amazing transition for this kid. But it's been a process in which he's gone through. He's worked like that since he came on campus, and it just tells you, if you prepare and you do the things you need to do to get better, that you can be successful. And Ty Freifogel's done exactly that. And of course, he's got a pretty dynamic quarterback, as we said, at Michael Pennix, to throw the ball to him.
It's just been amazing to watch these guys work, and to know that they can be coming back next year. That's an incredible thing, too. Without fans this year, it obviously has been not as fun for Hoosier Nation. But do you think having this year basically without fans and having to watch this Indiana team succeed will help next year get more fans into the stands in addition to the winning?
Well, Jim, I can tell you this. I've watched Indiana football for 48 years now. And I've seen very few full houses in my as the play-by-play announcer for IU. We've had full houses. Ohio State brought everybody from Columbus. Yeah. We've had full houses on occasion for other ball games, but it's never been consistent. So my question is, what does it take to get a full house at Memorial Stadium? And I don't know if that question can be answered until we see some real success. And I know a big part of the years that Bill Mallory was there and the teams that they had good crowds. I mean, it wasn't packed all the time. It wasn't full houses all the time, even then. And that was with 6 bowl teams back in the day. So I've never seen it consistently good. I'd love to see that kind of consistency with the fan base. A belief that football is really, really important from the fans at Indiana University, but I'm not seeing it. So until I do, I can't really comment on a positive scenario like you're asking me for.
Yeah, a little positive prognostication, but we'll look forward to hopefully that happening. But, man, the Indiana Hoosiers come back this week. They take on a Maryland team that's had a week off to prepare for them, but I don't think that's going to matter after Ohio State having a week off. Indiana, they're looking really, really good right now. And even though Maryland's a good team with Tagovailoa, this defense, they're playing at a very elite level.
Well, they are, and we just don't know if we're going to see a game this week because Maryland, of course, has 30 cases of COVID. At least that's the report that we got over the weekend. 23 players and 7 coaches, or seven people in their football administration, have had this event take place, and they've canceled their last 2 games. Obviously, Ohio State and Michigan State being the 2 games that they did not play. Their coach came down with it, I guess, a week ago today. I don't know whether we're going to see a football game this week or not. I know that they're going to try and do their best to make that happen. But honestly, whether we see a game or not, we'll just have to wait and see at this juncture, because I think it'll probably be later this week before we know that. So right now, is Maryland good? They're much better than I think a lot of people thought they would be this year as well, because they have really employed a tremendous amount of speed with the talent that they've recruited here over the last couple of years. That's their calling card. They have terrific talent from a speed perspective. They're very quick and very fast. They'll give Indiana a run for their money from a quickness and a speed standpoint, but they've also got a quarterback, Tagovailoa, Tagovailoa. So, and we're going to practice on his name as we get through the week if we have a ball game, so I can pronounce it correctly.
You
But,
better hope that CO doesn't tackle him.
His brother Tua, of course, was at Alabama, and now it's in the NFL. So we know that their pedigree is pretty strong there as well. But their skill people are very, very good, and Indiana will have its hands full if they play Maryland, I think.
Yeah, your hope is that CO does not sack Tagovailoa, I bet.
Well, I've got his name down. I think I can handle CO's name, but Tagovailoa is going to take a little more time, I think.
Yeah, it's a tongue twister. Before I let you go, Wednesday, the basketball season gets started, and you'll be on the call there.
Well, we're looking forward to basketball. Obviously, there's no doubt this is it's been a strange year for the Hoosiers in that regard as well, but they should open the season on Wednesday night against Tennessee Tech. Then they'll be in the Maui Invitational in Asheville, North Carolina next Monday to play Providence in their first game there and play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's going to be a very interesting start to the season for basketball as well. As everyone knows, the season opens November 25th, which is this Wednesday, all across the country. And I think Archie Miller feels he's got one of the best teams that he's had, certainly the best team he's had on campus in his start of the fourth season that he's been at IU. I think there's a lot of optimism about that team. 4 starters back from a year ago, 3 key reserves, 4 promising freshmen. So I think everybody's excited about basketball as well. So the only unexciting thing about it is the fact that there are going to be no fans in the stands for basketball either at this point. So that to me is, and as everyone knows, Indiana basketball has always had good fan support and a fan base that showed up for games. So it's just different. This is a really unnormal year, as everyone knows. It's been an incredibly disruptive year from a sports perspective, not just sports, everything in life. But all that said, there's still things going on right now. We're playing sports again. Hopefully, that isn't affected too much by COVID through the year. But the start of the season is Wednesday night. We're looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Everybody gets to get a double dose of Don Fisher. Nothing can make Hoosier fans happier than that. Don, thank you so much, sir. I hope you have a great week.
Well, looking forward to it, Jim. Obviously, we've got the Inside IU basketball show with Archie Miller tonight. Tuesday night, we've got Tom Allen moving his show from Wednesday to Tuesday for the basketball game, and then Wednesday we start. And hopefully, we got a game on Saturday when Indiana will hopefully take on Maryland. So it could be a busy week. We just don't know how busy yet.
Yeah, good thing you're not doing women's basketball too. Man, you don't have any more room for Don Fisher. Thank you, sir. I hope you have a great week.
Thanks. Appreciate you guys having me. Thanks.
You bet. There's their legend, Don Fisher, joining us, the voice of the Hoosiers here on Indiana Sports Beat. We got lots more coming up. Dylan Sin sitting in. We'll talk to Matt Taylor from the Colts as well. We'll be back with more to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios here on this Monday. A little Monday morning quarterback action going on as we're wrapping up the weekend. Matt Taylor from the Colts, how you doing, brother?
I'm well, guys. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. I heard you just fine yesterday, too, on that call. Great call, by the way, but great game. I've told people earlier, I'm like, man, I didn't give the Colts much of a chance in this game. Been watching how they're playing, been kind of struggling to get by offensively. Man, they look like a decent team yesterday because the Packers are, to me, one of the top 2 in the league.
Without question. And I think, come on now. I think you have to be better than a decent team on the Colts at this point, right? 7-3.
Kidding.
Yeah, they've got 2 signature wins here in the last 2 weeks. Wins over Tennessee and Green Bay. And then it's not for all the marbles coming up next Sunday, but certainly a game that's going to go a long way in deciding if the Colts are the AFC South champs or the Titans win the division for the first time since 2008. But yeah, it wasn't pretty yesterday. 28-14. You're down at halftime. Then in the second half, it's just gangbusters. You outscore them 17-3 in the second half. I mean, the Packers on their first 4 drives of the second half, they go punt. They lose a fumble on a kickoff return, and then they turn the ball over on downs with about 3 minutes to go. Just the resiliency of the Colts was on full display. playmaking ability and crunch time. The quarterback play was great again out of Phillip Rivers. 11 different guys caught a pass. It was just a total team effort again. And special teams played great with the kicking game, the punting game. As I said, they forced a fumble on a kickoff return. It's just the Colts are playing good complementary football right now. And it's a big reason why they're 7-3. And they've already matched their win total from last year in 2019 when they went 7-9. So they're off to a great start. 7-3, as I said, it's the best start record-wise through 10 games since 2013, and it looks like the Colts are definitely in a mix for a playoff spot and potentially an AFC South championship for the first time since 2014.
Yeah, you win a game that Aaron Rodgers has the ball in his hands in the last 2 minutes, and you still win that game. You've done something, because that's what he is. That's the kind of quarterback he is. You give him that ball, and it's usually over for them. But man, the defense held up and the offense came back, got the score on the first overtime, which was huge, because that would have been a big difference if they put that ball back in his hands. But man, what does this do for them as they go forward? Because they've got a big divisional matchup now with the Titans coming back up.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, because I think as players, as human beings, you win on a short week against Tennessee to really kind of get the momentum of the season back in control. I mean, we talk about this month of November for the Colts being such a meat grinder, with Baltimore and Tennessee and Green Bay, and then Tennessee again to wrap up the month of November. It was like, how are we going to get through this? How are we going to navigate this really critical stretch that will not only sort of dictate where we are record-wise and playoff positioning-wise, but just how much will it prove that we're a legit team that can beat other legitimate teams in the NFL. With Tennessee having advanced to the AFC championship game last year, Green Bay having advanced to the NFC championship game last year. Where do the Colts stack up? And I think psychologically, these last 2 wins prove that the Colts, they can compete with anybody. They can beat anybody, especially if they play complementary football like they did for the last 2 quarters and 7 minutes of that overtime yesterday. So I think I think it was really big that the Colts got those wins to prove to themselves that they are a good team, that they can stack up against just about anybody. So I think, from an execution standpoint, there's still things, you're winning games, but there's still things to be desired, especially in the first half, where the Colts defense is just not making plays and giving up those big plays. Not able to get off the field on third down, and Aaron Rodgers is going right down the field and putting up big plays to Devontae Adams and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and then for whatever reason the Colts have been a second half team. It's the third time this season the Colts go into halftime and really kind of put the clamps on defense, make adjustments. I mean, in the last 2 second halves against Tennessee and Green Bay, the Colts are outscoring their opponents 41-3 in the second half. So, it's troubling that the first half's not going well in these big games against these high potent offenses, but it's also equally as encouraging that, the second half is a completely different story. So, really, really exciting where this team is right now. And obviously a huge game coming up next Sunday against Tennessee that will go again a long way in deciding who has the leg up on the AFC South with 4 games to go, or 5 games to go, I should say.
Yeah, Matt, you talked about the Colts being a second half team, and all things being equal, if you're going to be a first half team or a second half team, you'd rather be a second half team, obviously. Do you have any explanation as to why the Colts are playing so much better after halftime? Is it a coaching thing? Do the coaches deserve a lot of credit for making halftime adjustments? Is it more of a team leadership thing, or what do we think here?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all of that. I think the coaches are really doing a good job in the second half of simplifying their mistakes, finding common denominators. Here's why we're struggling. But I also think too, and not to sound too simplistic, but I just think it boils down to execution. And I think it just boils down to guys getting more comfortable in their role, and not, thinking that the moment is too big for them. In the second half, the Colts, obviously they didn't just, in a 12-minute halftime, it's not like they went in there and put in a whole new game plan. And it's not like they, switched their scheme defensively from what they are. It's just execution and guys just playing better. And it sounds cliche, but it's just the 1/11th, each guy doing what they're supposed to be doing out there. And guys started making more plays. You had more pressure on Aaron Rodgers in the second half. I thought the coverage was much better. The windows were a lot tighter on Adams and Scantling, as I said. So I just think the defense just kind of hunkered down and got to it. And you know what? Momentum is a funny thing, and a lot of people don't believe in it. I'm kind of on the fence about it, but yesterday was one of those games where the Colts got the second half, the first possession of the second half, went down 7+ minute drive, kicked the field goal, and then they 3-and-out of the Packers. And then you could just kind of sense that, hey, a comeback here, a late game rally was possible. So just really exciting the way this team's playing right now, especially when the chips are down. It's the second time this season the Colts have come back from at least 14 points to win a game. So it's a fun team. I think it's a special team in that regard. They believe in one another, and no situation is too big for them. Offensively, again, so many guys continue to contribute, and 11 different guys caught passes yesterday. Phillip Rivers was over 100 passer rating, almost 300 yards for the third straight week. It's just a really, really fun, enjoyable team. And, no matter where you stand on the Colts, they're exciting. They play an exciting brand of football, and they're going to keep your heart pounding for 3+ hours every Sunday.
Yeah, they're certainly heading in the right direction as the season starts to wind down and head toward the playoffs. But that's the way you want to be playing. Also saw Indiana over the weekend, Matt, a gigantic game with the Ohio State Buckeyes, top 10 matchup that a lot of people had written Indiana off. They were 3-touchdown underdogs, and it looked like that was going to be the case in the first half. But, man, did the Hoosiers come storming back, and it had not been for some mistakes, they knock off the number 3 Buckeyes.
Well, that's true, and it's exciting, and as a fan after that game, you have to be realistic about the matchup because I think Ohio State is just that good. And so after that game, you come away thinking you're not discouraged at all. You knew going into that ball game it was going to take a perfect game for the Hoosiers to win it, and they played far from perfect and still had a shot. So that's why you're still excited about this team and where this program is right now. And obviously, you guys have talked about this game. The biggest difference in the game for me was late in the second quarter and start of the third quarter. The Buckeyes dominated that roundabout, as I call it. They deferred to the second half. So the analytics is just for whatever reason, and this is proven, so true so many times, that if you defer to the second half, chances are you're going to get the last possession of the second quarter. That's exactly what happened, and it was a really big turning point as Indiana was going in. They fumbled on about the 5-yard line after a catch. So you're thinking at least 3 points right there for the Hoosiers, and then it's a 10-point swing as the Buckeyes go right down the field, score a touchdown before halftime to go up, I think, 28-7 at the break, and then they get the ball to start the third quarter, and then they score another touchdown on their first drive of the second half. So they won that roundabout, as I call it, and they successfully scored 14 points between Indiana possessions, and that's really, really where the game kind of got too far out of hand, I think, for IU. Obviously, as you said, they came back, showed great resilience, but that's just too much right there, and that's really where the game sort of got out of reach for IU in terms of just the possessions needed to get back into the game. But credit Ohio State. They held off IU in the end, but the Hoosiers, man, they're a fun team again, and they just continue to make plays. Michael Pennix is proving to be a special player at quarterback. Ty Freifogel, the defense is aggressive. I was a little bit disappointed defensively with the tackling and the pursuit angles a little bit. But again, Ohio State's just that quick, that fast. And, that the level of competition that the Hoosiers have been playing the last 2 weeks, especially compared to Ohio State, it's just on another level there with the Buckeyes. But again, not discouraged at all, equally as excited now as I was before the game, and just really, really pumped up on where this team is headed, where this program is headed under Tom Allen.
I noticed that Ty Freifogel, I say it like that because that's how it was written, got the attention of one Jim Irsay over the weekend, and that sure got a lot of Hoosier fans excited.
Yeah, Jim Irsay's chiming in. So is LeBron James on Twitter. Giving credit to IU. So yeah, this is pretty cool, and I think for a lot of us, uncharted waters. But you're happy that you're swimming in a different sea here compared to where this program has been. So yeah, hopefully they can play on Sunday. I don't know what's going on with Maryland. I don't know what the status is for that game, but hopefully it can get played and the momentum can continue. And I'm just excited for where this team is, and super pumped for. Don't want to overlook Maryland if that game can get played, but just excited on for what IU can do against another top 15 team against Wisconsin in a few weeks as well.
Yeah, Dylan, we just had Don Fisher on, and he made mention of the fact that Maryland is not looking good, to be honest. And I didn't realize it was that bad going into this week, but it's not looking good.
Yeah, he said 30 players or 30 team personnel have COVID right now, 23 players and 7 coaches, including the head coach, Mike Loxley. So it's a lot for Maryland right now, and you have to hope that they get healthy quick here because they've already had the last 2 games canceled. And you want them to play, right? You don't want to have IU coast through the rest of the season because you want them to be able to play these games. So, yeah, we hope that Maryland is healthy here going forward. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure IU wouldn't mind a little bye week as they head down towards the last part of the season, but they'd much rather be playing because they're playing very well. We mentioned Ty Fryfogle and Michael Pennix. They're playing at an NFL, I don't want to say NFL level, but they're playing at a pretty high level beyond your normal college quarterback to receiver, Matt.
No, I don't think there's any question. I don't think you have to stop short with that either. I think you're absolutely accurate that Michael Pennix is proving that in terms of just the overall arm strength and the ability to make every throw, he's absolutely an NFL quarterback. Now, he needs to improve the footwork. He needs to improve the accuracy. But just in terms of having the raw ability to get the ball out wherever he needs it to be, that's definitely there. That's something you can't coach. You either have that or you don't. And I go back to that Michigan State game. He made throws from the opposite hash mark to the other side of the field that a lot of college quarterbacks they don't even attempt those throws. And a lot of defenses don't even they don't guard those throws. They don't defend that area of the field because most college quarterbacks can't make that pass. So there's no question that he has the ability just from a physical standpoint to play at the next level. He just needs to kind of refine his skills and continue to get better and mature.
I agree with you, man. I appreciate you as always. I hope you have fun continuing with these wins for the Colts as that's what's been going on. They've got the Titans next week, and hopefully that winning continues.
I appreciate it, guys. Always enjoy being with you. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll talk next week.
Absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving to you and to your family. Thank you, Matt. Matt Taylor from the Colts joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat as we're coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. We got a lot more coming up. Dylan Sin setting in. We'll be back with more right after this. Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Monday. And it is definitely that. Dylan Sin sitting in from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. We talked to Don Fisher and Matt Taylor already. Loaded morning. A lot going on this weekend. We talked about the Colts, talked about Indiana football. We'll talk about more on that. But Mason Miller decision coming this evening. That I don't think that's going to go Indiana's way from what I've heard. Alec Lasley has spoken to him from the Hoosier.com, and it doesn't seem like it's going that direction. You never know. Where does Indiana go from there, Dylan? I mean, you lose Trey Kaufman, and now you lose Mason Miller, both in the exact same position, position that you're trying to fill. Now fortunately, you've got this COVID situation to where they're not going to necessarily lose anybody, but what this hurts, it's going forward. You got to continue to build this roster, and you're in year 4 now. That would put you in year 5, and it's like, it's not a good situation for Archie to be in.
Yeah, it's going to be tough because that is a position, as you said, that they need some help. And obviously with COVID, people might be able to come back, but who knows? Joey Brunk is already a 5th-year senior. Does he want to come back for a 6th year? Or does he want to kind of try his hand in the pros? Who knows about that? Trace Jackson Davis, it seems like he's probably going to be gone after this year because he's going to be an NBA lottery pick. So where do you go from there in terms of big guys? Because they have Logan Duncombe in the 2021 class. He seems like a very, very good player. But you don't want your only big guy to be a true freshman. So they're going to have to find something pretty quickly here and figure out how to make that work, maybe on the transfer market, because with the COVID situation and a lot of guys coming back, there are probably going to be some transfers that are looking for a little bit more playing time. Indiana should probably, if Mason Miller chooses Creighton, which, as you said, there's a good chance that he does, then IU should probably go look on the transfer market and try to get someone to fill out that roster, because they're going to have a hole there in the post, and you can't win in the Big Ten playing all small ball all the time. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, Kenya Hunter coming in, the fruits of his labor just hasn't happened yet. It hasn't been enough time because most of these decisions, these were all way in play. I mean, Trey Kaufman and Mason Miller and Aminu Muhammad, those things were set way in motion. So Kenya Hunter is probably more going to help the 2022 guys. It's probably where he focused maybe. I don't know. I'm not in there, but I would think that coming in kind of late like he did, that they would just have him focus on the 2022 class. But this 2021 class is lacking, and they're going to have to turn. Like you said, they're going to grad transfer something to fill that hole. And it's just not a good look for Archie Miller when you're still struggling to get your roster, and you're struggling to get your roster.
They have lost out on some fairly high profile recruits here over the last few years, especially the ones that are tough are the ones you lose out on to Purdue. Trey Kaufman was a tough one. I understand that he probably, it seems like he wanted to play with Caleb first. They seem like they complement each other well and they're friends. So I understand that to a certain extent. And being a Fort Wayne guy, we know how good Caleb is, so who wouldn't want to play with him? But losing guys like Brandon Newman to Purdue, that's a tough pill to swallow for Indiana, especially these guys are ones that, especially Archie came in and wanted to own the state. And he has to a certain extent. He's gotten Romeo, he's gotten Trace, he's gotten Christian Lander, and those are huge gets. But you lose other guys along the way, and those are tough pills to swallow, especially when they're good players and they can help your team.
Yeah, and let's be fair. He's getting good ones too. Anthony Leal and Trey Galloway, of course, some very core type players that Hoosier fans like, and that you expect good things out of. They're both very, very solid players. So it's getting the good ones as well. But you can't hit it down the middle. You kind of got to go over the line, and I think that he's been kind of down the middle with getting the Indiana recruits. Yeah, he's got some nice ones with the Mr. Basketballs and stuff, but until you really put it over the top, you're struggling. That's why right now the media's got Indiana picked to finish 8th in the Big Ten, and that's pretty far down in your 4th year. And I know this is a tough year in this conference. Don't get me wrong, but the 7 teams that are in front of them, they've been working to get this position too, and they're there.
Yeah, and you're right. I will say the one thing I will say about the 2021 class, it looks pretty bare with just Logan Duncombe. But what you have to remember is that Christian Lander was a 2021 guy, the best 2021 guy probably in Indiana's range that they could have gotten, and they got him, and then he reclassified. So if you take that out and you look at the 2021 class from that perspective, it looks a whole lot better. But yeah, in terms of the Big Ten, obviously this is a loaded year for the Big Ten. It might be the best the Big Ten has been in recent memory. There are just so many good teams. Teams that aren't usually at the top. Yeah, aren't usually at the top of the league are at the top of the league this year. Iowa and Illinois being the 2 favorites is something that we have not seen in the Big Ten for about 15 years now. And then you throw in teams that are still good, Michigan State, Michigan, whoever else. Ohio State's up. So this is a loaded year for the Big Ten, and every night is going to be a fight for IU.
Let's see. Getting back to some Indiana football, Michael Pennix, Heisman. Of course, no chance that he was going to be on that list this year because he plays for Indiana and just coming back from injury and all that. But man, oh man, has he continued to light it up and done it on a very big stage. He's done things that Trevor Lawrence hasn't done this year, that Notre Dame's quarterback hasn't done this year, but he's not going to get that recognition. Unless he continues to do these very things throughout the end of the year, I don't see him making it into the Heisman finalist this season. But man, oh man, he will definitely be in that list next year.
Yeah, and the scary thing for teams that are facing IU is that Michael Pennix has room to grow. We saw some throws on Saturday against Ohio State. Obviously, he made some great ones. And part of that is, quite frankly, Ohio State's secondary is not good. They have a potential first round pick at corner in Sean Wade, and the rest of that secondary is pretty rough. But yeah, he had some throws against Ohio State that if he had made could have changed that game, and he missed them. And so there is room to improve. He could have easily been 550 yards in that game. And so he is very, very talented. He played extremely well against the Buckeyes, and there's still room to grow. That was not Michael Penix's ceiling on Saturday, and that has to be a scary thought for the rest of the Big Ten because he lit it up against the Buckeyes. And the fact that there's still room to grow, it's a bright future for Indiana at quarterback.
Pro Football Focus College put out a great stat. Most passing yards under pressure in a single game in the Pro Football Focus College era. Number 3, Patrick Mahomes in 2016, Week 6 versus Kansas State, 273. That was Patrick Mahomes, I said. Number 2, Patrick Mahomes, 2016, Week 8 versus Oklahoma, 278. That was Patrick Mahomes, I just said. Probably the best football in quarterback in football today. Number 1, Michael Pennix Jr., Indiana, 2020, Week 12 versus Ohio State, 312.5 pressured yards thrown. That is a telling number. That's a guy who we watched perform on the stage last night at the highest level. That's why I talked a minute ago with Matt about Michael Pennix. He's an NFL grade quarterback right now. Yeah, he's got stuff to learn to get better at, but this dude has the tools right now.
Absolutely. I mean, his arm is extremely strong. He can make all the throws. We heard Matt talking about the throw to the far hash, which again, as he said, most college quarterbacks don't even attempt because it's a dangerous throw. It floats if your arm is not strong enough. So those are throws that are NFL level throws. And I will say with the pressure, that is great. Michael Penix is extremely poised. He can make throws when there's a rusher bearing down on him. He is not afraid to get hit. He's a very, very confident guy in the pocket. That's a problem for Indiana's offensive line. They need to do a better job of protecting him so he's not pressured as much as he was against Ohio State. And obviously, Ohio State's defensive front is very good. But Michael Pennix, with a history of injuries that he has, Indiana's offensive line really needs to do a better job of protecting him and, quite frankly, keeping him safe because right now he is the key to victory for IU and the one that can take this team to heights that it has not seen in 50 years here. So keep Michael Pennix healthy at all costs. That is the goal for Indiana over the next 6 weeks.
Oh, absolutely. But Indiana, we talk about recruiting. They're pretty good at quarterback spot right now. You've got Jack Tuttle sitting in the wings that we don't even really get to hear anything about because for obvious reasons. But then you've got more behind him, and then you've got possible Taven Jackson coming here. Man, oh man, Indiana is about to become a quarterback factory. If they can keep those guys in the fold, it's very difficult to do that. But there's just a lot in the cupboard. There's a lot coming to the cupboard. This program seems to be set for going forward. There's no reason to think this is going to change. Now, no one ever thinks it's going to change when things are going well, but this is just seems to me the direction that Tom Allen just has this program, period. It's not like this is a 1-year 2020 blip. The recruits, he's doing this with some of the good recruits, but they haven't really started to fall like they're about to start falling. And man, oh man, what's going to happen when Indiana's got 4- and 5-star recruits?
Yeah. Hey, you talked about Taven Jackson and the Indiana is in on him and they want him. Trace Jackson Davis's brother, one of the best recruits in Indiana in 2022. Don't forget about Donovan McCulley, the Lawrence North kid, 2021 guy, 4-star quarterback who is already committed to Indiana. So yeah, you're right. They are set at quarterback for a while here, but yeah, we talked to Don earlier and he said something that I thought was really smart was that the next step for Indiana is to get those type of guys up front on the lines. And that's some place where Indiana has really recruited the skill positions well. They have guys in the defensive backfield. They have wide receivers. They have good running back recruits. They need to get guys up front on that same level. And that's kind of the next step for them here. And they started to do it a little bit. Joshua Sales is the guy that is one of the top recruits in Indiana, and bringing him in on the offensive line is huge. But yeah, they need to kind of stack those on top of each other, because that's where the real money is made. It's you can have all the skill position guys you want, but if you're going to beat really good teams on a consistent basis, you can win some games against good teams with big plays, but on a consistent basis, you're going to need to dominate up front, and that's the next step for Indiana.
I've said this before. Indiana has next, recruiting-wise, they have to win the Indiana wars for what was the kid's name that went to Ohio State a couple years ago? Great basketball player, Caleb, I think. Big 6'9" dude. He's playing football for Ohio State, but he was a pretty good, very fleet of foot basketball player. But I saw Urban Meyer talking about that. That's what he looks for in offensive linemen. And yeah, you got a guy that's 6'8" that can play basketball. My gosh, and he's playing offensive guard for you. Yeah, that's what Ohio State has. Every lineman they have, 5-star recruit. They have an entire front of 5 stars. Do you know how many of Indiana's are 5 stars? 0. That's the difference. And that's exactly what they've got to get that front up a little more. We got to take a break before we get too deep in this. We got a lot more coming up, but we'll talk more about that. But yeah, they just got to get, they're getting there. They're getting there. They've elevated everything else, and they're so close. We got a lot more. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat. We're coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Monday. We'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you on this Monday. Dylan Sims sitting in from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. Jim Coyle with you as always. What were we just talking about in the break, Dylan? Because I was getting ready to start talking about that where we left off.
Talking about IU recruiting and how they need to get it stepped up on the offensive line, and especially because that's where they're still kind of a little bit below the level of teams like Ohio State, and that's where the money's made. So to speak, in terms of winning games late. So that's a huge thing for IU going forward, is to start getting those 4-star guys on the lines. That's where you can really start turning a program around.
Through 5 games, Indiana's running game has picked up a whopping 380 yards. That's an average of 2.4 yards per carry. That's 13th out of 14 Big Ten teams.
I'm surprised it's 13th, quite frankly.
Oh man, yeah, that's not good if you're an elite offense. And yeah, you throw for 500 yards passing, but you've got to be able to run the ball. I mean, you can get away with this against almost anybody except for Ohio State. Let's be honest. If you're throwing for 500 yards like they do, yeah, that's going to be tough for anybody else to keep up with them. But to compete with the elite, which this is an elite team. Indiana, we saw them. They competed with the elite. They could have beat Ohio State had they not made their mistakes. So to continue that, and we know that that's what they want to do, got to get this running game shored up. I'm a little surprised, to be honest with you, Dylan, that the running game's having problems, because we know that they've got some depth there, and we think of Stevie Scott, Samson James, and I'm like, I'm not sure what's the problem. I'm a little – I can't put my finger on it, to be honest with you.
To me, it seems like it has to be a line issue, because we know that Stevie Scott and to a certain extent Samson James are very talented runners. We know that they've made plays in the past as recently as last season. So there's no reason that they shouldn't be able to run the football. They have plenty of talent at running back. So it has to be some kind of line issue or a scheme issue, that it's just they're not quite in sync. And yeah, to me, honestly, it's a little bit of an indictment of Ohio State and their coaching staff that they weren't able to figure out a way to just drop basically 8 in coverage and dare Indiana to run the ball. Because the fact that IU was able to throw for 500 yards with no running game to speak of, if you're Ohio State, why do you not just basically drop everyone and say, Indiana, show us you can run the ball? And that never happened in the second half. And I was a little surprised by that. But yeah, there's going to be some teams going forward, Wisconsin and Iowa especially, that are going to try to make Indiana really one-dimensional. They're going to try to take away the pass and say, beat us with the run. And Indiana is going to have to figure out a way to do that, because teams are going to figure out that Michael Pennix and Ty Freifogel and Whop Phillier are the best weapons this Indiana offense has. And if they take those guys out, can Stevie Scott and Samson James win IU a game? And that is going to be something that's probably going to happen down the stretch of the season here as teams get more film on this IU team.
Thank goodness that Michael Pennix is a sophomore, and I think Ty Freifogel is also a sophomore, which will force them to come back for one more year, I think, before turning pro. Next year is definitely the last you'll see of Michael Pennix in Indiana, I think, unfortunately. I don't want to throw that out there already, but, man, I mean, we knew he was going to be good, but I don't think anybody expected the quality of play. But you've got to give these receivers that he has, without those guys, his quality of play is non-existent. Ty Freifogel, Wapfillier, those guys making some great catches, but they've made just enough mistakes it's not, mistakes happen. Miles Marshall with that fumble. My gosh, you got to give credit to the Ohio State defense, because I promise you, no other team probably would have had a defender quick enough, smart enough to do what that player did, reach around, knocking the ball loose. That's the elite level of Ohio State play. That's why these guys are going to the NFL. They're making those kind of plays. The Jamar the fumble after the interception, man. I mean, you could take 3 plays right now. Those 2 fumbles and the pick 6. Yeah. Why? I mean, holy cow! Look what happens.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, like every game has mistakes. You're not going to play a perfect football game, but it's tough for Indiana to kind of swallow that the 3 biggest mistakes they made in the game were all in huge moments and had huge consequences. That fumble, it was David Ellis that had the fumble, I believe, in the red zone. It was a little bit unlucky. He was moving the ball away from the referee, who was standing right in his way, and that's why he was able to get knocked out. Obviously, you don't want to fumble, but that one's tough. Jamar Johnson, that interception, that was a really tough break for Indiana. It was one of the best defensive plays of the entire day. Justin Fields was pressured. He threw the ball up, a terrible decision, and Ohio State gets a first down out of it. Now, the defense responded and got them to go 3 and out after that, which is fantastic. But that's just bad luck, and that's another time where they got the ball right in the red zone. And then the pick 6, right before the pick 6, you forget that Michael Pennix threw a perfect pass down the sideline. Should have been a 40, 45-yard gain to David Ellis, and he wasn't able to bring it in. And then the next play is just a bad decision to the outside, one of the few poor decisions that Pennix made the entire day. So those are 3 plays that really, based on the final score, they really swung that game. And you, as close as Indiana was and as well as they played overall, you kind of got to be kicking yourself a little bit. You weren't quite able to get it done. And I think Indiana is, and I think that's important. You can't rest on this and say, oh, we were close, we're good, we know it, and we can kind of coast from here. You have to be angry at those plays and try to eliminate them going forward. I think that's going to be important for IU. And I think they have the team and the coaching staff that'll do that.
Yeah, a year ago, this was the conversation after the Michigan State game, after the Penn State game. Oh, gosh, we're close. Could have beat those next-tier Big Ten teams. And by next tier, I mean anybody that's behind Ohio State first, and that's where those guys are. But they were knocking on the door of that next-tier games, and we knew that they should have won both the Michigan State and the Penn State game last year, and you saw it coming. Now this is with one of the best teams in the country, a team that will be most likely playing in the college football playoffs, a spot that you want to talk about and get excited? Let's talk about Indiana in the college football playoffs next year when they get everybody back. I think next year may be the year this was the year they competed with Ohio State. Next year could be either they beat them. They'll have them in Bloomington. College game day. I mean, I already see it. College game day's coming. You got Ohio State, Indiana, again, fighting for Big Ten supremacy, but Indiana's going to have everybody back. This could be just a monster year next year, even bigger than this one.
Yeah, you have to hope that they get as many people back as possible, and some of the recruits from these last few classes that have been very, very talented start to step up here. The one issue that they probably won't have coming back, Ty Freifogel is a senior. He probably won't be back next year. I would assume that he is gone for the NFL. Michael Pennix could leave theoretically. He's a redshirt sophomore, so he could leave theoretically. I don't know if he would want to, because I think another great year in Indiana could really send his draft stock skyrocketing, kind of the Trace Jackson Davis plan, where you have one season to kind of put yourself on people's radar, and then the next year you play yourself into really high draft pick contention. So that would be my guess for Pennix. But then you have to hope that just about everyone else is back, especially some of these guys on defense, which has really gelled together this year. So that'll be really nice to see for Indiana next year. And as Tom Allen has said, that the important part is to stack classes on top of each other, and they've done that to kind of fill some of these holes that they do have. So, yeah, Indiana could have a very good season next year as well. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But yeah, the trajectory of this program, everything is up right now, especially with Tom Allen kind of at the controls here and recruiting as well as he has. And hopefully that improves even more here as people realize that Indiana is for real as they build this program.
Is COVID the best thing that has happened to Indiana football besides Tom Allen? Is COVID the best thing that happened to Indiana football because they're hitting it now? They're having to be hitting their stride right now in this COVID weird situation. But because of that, because of the COVID deal, because of getting to keep everybody, because of this program getting to keep the guys they need, where the Ohio States, those guys are going to go pro, whatever. Not going to be the case at an Indiana. And is this the thing that continues to elevate them, and because it helps elevate them because of that, because they get everybody back, because of this added year of eligibility?
I think part of it, I will say, I don't know how much of COVID affected the season as a whole. I know there are some Big Ten teams that are down this year because they've lost players. I do think on a very micro level, Indiana doesn't beat Penn State if they play in a regular season. I don't think, because Micah Parsons is one of the best linebackers in the country, and he was out for that game because he opted out for the season. The margin in that game was so thin that I think one of the best linebackers in the country probably swings it. So on a micro level, I think Indiana might have won that game, and that's a type of game that you win, and the floodgates just kind of open. And that is what has happened for Indiana. So maybe they needed a break of some kind. Micah Parsons opting out and gave them that, and they were able to go win that game. And who knows, maybe they would have won it anyway. But it was great to get that win and then go out and beat a Michigan team that also is missing some players. And those type of wins, you really get the ball rolling. And sometimes it just needs one or two little things here and there to move that ball. And now it's rolling. And the momentum seems to be there for Indiana.
The momentum is there for some high school teams as we are deep into the playoffs, because I think we're ready for some state champions to be crowned. We'll have to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about that, the results over the weekend. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. We're back with more right after this. Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat coming to you on this Monday from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Dylan Sin from Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette sitting in with Jim Coyle as well, always. Don Fisher's been with us earlier. Matt Taylor from the Colts as well. Speaking of football, high school football, the Hsa State Championships are set, Dylan. The Class A, South Adams, big winner, 42-9 over Lafayette Central Catholic, Covenant Christian, 55-8 over West Washington. You mentioned, we talked in breaks, that those guys neither have been challenged much this year. Yeah,
absolutely. South Adams is a team from Bern up here in the Northeast Indiana area. They're a very, very talented team. They were pushed a little bit by Southwood in the regional, but they were able to come out with that win. And then they won this past week in semi-state to go to their first state championship game ever. After that game, Bern was extremely excited. I saw a video of the players from the football team riding on a fire truck through the streets. So they are extremely excited for that, and they get the 11 a.m.
with masks on, I'm
on
sure.
Saturday against. Oh, absolutely. I'm sure their coaches would not have let them go up there and do that if they did not have masks on. This is not the week.
Come too far, man. You come too far.
Yeah, exactly. This is not the week to be cavalier about your protection. So yeah, they get the 11 a.m. game on Saturday, the first game of the second day. So congratulations to South Adams. They've had a great year and they've earned it, as has Covenant Christian. That should be a great game between two teams that have really been the class of the division this year.
And 2A, Fort Wayne Allures, 42-34 over Pioneer, and Western Boone They knock off Evansville Mater Dei 42-7. So Allures and Boone will clash for the title.
Those are two teams that started 1-3 this season. They have had great turnarounds late in the year. I was at the Lures Pioneer game on Friday. That was one of the best high school football games I've seen in my time here in Fort Wayne. Lures was down 22-0 at one point in that game. It was 28-7 at halftime. And they had a terrific second half. Their coach said it was the best half of football, playoff football that he'd seen on that field at Lures. And if you know the history of Lures, 16 state championship appearances, I think 12 state titles. Jalen Smith played there. So if you know anything about them, you know that is a big statement. They played a terrific second half of football, and they're playing with a ton of confidence going in against Boone on Friday at 11 a.m.
Moving up to 3A, Danville knocked off Southridge 30-7. And let's see, it was Bishop Chittard and a tight one with Mishawaka Marion 18-13. I think that one was maybe the other game sealed by a late interception. But these games start to get a little tighter as we move up the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And Danville has a chance to finish the season undefeated here. So that's a nice feather in their cap to end the year. And those are two really good teams. Like you said, Chittard went and beat Mishawaka Marion. They're battle tested now. So this should be a great game up there in 3A.
In 4A, a little blast from the past, man. How about the Hobart Brickies? Big 49-20 win over Marion. They're going to the state championship to take on Roncalli, who was a 42-14 winner over Mooresville. But the Brickies, man, that's from they were back in the 80s, the Hobart Brickies. They own Northern football. Penn, that was so, oh man, those Northern teams.
Yeah, I saw Marion play earlier in the year, and they're an extremely good team. The fact that Hobart was able to beat them relatively easily speaks to how good they are. And yeah, as you said, a little bit of a blast from the past. They're recapturing the glory of a few decades ago, and nice to see them back in the title game.
And then 5A, Zionsville continues to roll. They knocked off Valpo 27-9. And then they'll be taking on, this can't be 6A. Did I move one up? That's Center Grove. Center Grove knocked off Ben Davis 48-13, but that's in 6A. Did I skip 5A somehow? 5A is Zionsville and Valpo.
Playing Cathedral in the 5A title.
There we go. Yeah, Cathedral knocked off Castle 32-7. Castle, great season, but man, this shows you
5A is Zionsville and Cathedral. Yeah.
Yeah, Cathedral is a really good team because Castle was a really good team. And just Cathedral, man, just not in a lot of trouble there. 32-7 over Castle. You'll take on Zionsville.
Yeah, Cathedral is extremely talented. Zionsville, what a story for them in the playoffs. 4-5 during the regular season, and then able to come out here and win some games in the playoffs. What a story for them. But Cathedral is extremely talented. Getting that one more, getting that to 8-5 is going to be tough for Zionsville because Cathedral is a very good team. But Zionsville's had some great wins in the tournament this year. They beat Bishop Dwenger, who is very, very good up here in Fort Wayne. So should be a good one in Class 5A. And
the heavyweight title match for the championship of the world in 6A, Westfield, they had no trouble with Maryville, 41-23, and they will be taking on the Mike Tyson, the favorite, Center Grove, 48-13 winner over Ben Davis. 48-13 over Ben Davis. That is a statement. Anyway, he's got a little technical issue there, but yeah, Center Grove, a big winner, 48-13.
I don't have to see that on Saturday night.
Well, Dylan, I can't hear you right now, so I'm sure you're still going. But let's see, like I said, Center Grove, a big 48-13 winner over Ben Davis. But man, oh man, the Thanksgiving's coming up this week. We've got all these games that are coming up. You've got Indiana may or may not have a game Thanksgiving, as Maryland has had some COVID problems that continue. That it does not sound Man, that's a lot to overcome. I know these teams want to play, especially having already missed 2 games. You miss a 3rd game, and that's really, really racks your season. But Indiana, I mean, I'd rather have seen them continue to play. They need the reps. I'd rather see this offense and this line continue to practice. They need the reps. Getting a week off never hurts. It's like a bye week. You can rest up a little bit and continue to practice. But I'd like to have seen him play. But this is not going to be detrimental to them. And who knows? Maybe it helps them as they get a week to prepare for Wisconsin the following week.
Yeah, absolutely. And who knows? Indiana, it'd be nice to have that extra week to prepare for Wisconsin. But you're right. You want to be able to play. You want to be able to play as many games as you can, especially in your own division. Go out and prove that you can beat these teams. Because also, every time you're on TV with a team like Indiana, every time you're on TV is a recruiting pitch, right? Telling teams, hey, we're here. We play on TV a lot nowadays. Come watch us. Come hear about what we have going in Indiana. So that's one of those things. If you have a chance to play, you want to play and figure out the extra rest later on. So hopefully they get the chance to play this weekend against Maryland. And Godspeed to everyone at Maryland as they try to figure out and get healthy here. So we hope that happens as well.
How much free advertising has Indiana gotten in the last 3 weeks? Not for the school, not just for the program, but for the school, but this program. How much recruiting advertising ESPN, because normally it's Auburn, it's Ohio State, it's Alabama, it's Clemson that gets all this love nonstop. Man, you're seeing. I posted something from Reese Davis talking about that's I'd go play for that guy. They're getting so much incredible advertising out of this. It's going to benefit big time. I just don't see how it can't.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're getting ESPN in a way that Indiana football just doesn't. And you talk about like, oh, it's on social media nowadays, so TV doesn't really matter as much, but like people are still watching SportsCenter, like that. So Indiana feature prominently in one of those highlight packages and look good doing it in the process. That's a good recruiting tool, and I'm sure Tom Allen was extremely excited to have that opportunity to have their team. Big teams are so important for these up and coming programs. If you show that you belong in the same field, which Indiana obviously did, you're going to have a lot of recruits looking at you and saying, hey, maybe I should take a look at this program.
Absolutely, man. Dylan Sin, thanks a lot to you for joining us today. Thanks a lot to Don Fisher, the legend, and Matt Taylor, the voice of the Colts. It's been fun as always. It is on each Monday here on the guy from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios. Almost forgot where I was. But coming up tomorrow, Kevin Brockway with us, of course. Chronic Hoosier will be on. Mike DeCourcy. We got plenty more to talk about. Will Indiana have a game? Basketball starts on Wednesday, so we've got a lot more going on there to get to. We're going to get through basketball season. We'll certainly find out. Dylan, I can't thank you enough, brother. Appreciate you.
Absolutely, Jim. Always glad to do it.
Everybody else, go out. Have a great day for yourself. Please do something nice for somebody. Make sure you wear your mask. And until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.